Hello, it's Bill, the Knee Pain Guru. Today is Friday, April 1st, 2022, and welcome to this week's edition of the Ask Dr. Beck Show. Welcome, Dr. Beck.
Morning, Bill. Morning, everyone.
How are things? How's the office?
Snowy.
It's snowing up there?
We got a dusting of snow last night.
Oh, man. Well, all right.
So if it ever stops snowing and get warm, things would be great. We could finish.
I think we caught back up. I think the feed caught back up. So you got some snow. You got some snow up there. And
Yep.
how's everything going at the office?
Building's still not complete. And so, it feels like more delays. Mostly it's weather now. But the building's coming along. The inside is 99% done, and the outside is 75% done.
Cool.
Yeah. So when it's all done, I'll take pictures and we can show pictures.
Excellent. And you've been seeing patients for a few weeks now, correct?
Yes.
Cool. So if anybody wanted to reach out to you and visit you in Indianapolis, they could do that, couldn't they?
Not find me in Indianapolis, but you can find me north of Indianapolis in Lebanon. Yes, we're happy to see folks.
In Indiana.
In Indiana, correct.
Got it. And what would be the best way for them to do that?
Osteopathicvision.com is my email or web address.
Okay,
and that's the easiest way to find out information and schedule an appointment, find our phone number, email address, all that kind of stuff.
Osteopathicvision.com. Okay. Let's do this. Vision.com. How about that? And that
like
fancy.
A banner that goes across the bottom.
It is. We're high tech.
Yes, indeed.
Okay. Let's see. Let's dig into the question. Today we're going to talk about inflammation.
Awesome.
And Sheri Baldwin writes, how do you reduce inflammation? What else is good for inflammation other than turmeric?
Okay. Well, we're going to have to go back to chemistry.
Okay.
So if we start first, we have to look at what inflammation is, and I'm going to approach it from two different avenues. From the body standpoint, inflammation is the trigger, it's the switch that calls out the repair crew to fix something that's been damaged. So, for example, if you paper cut on your finger, right? It's painful, but we don't look at what happens. It just glues itself up and heals. But how does it do that? So when you get a cut, in this case, for example, the capillaries, which are the blood vessels that move the blood in very tiny increments and oxygenate our tissues, they get what we call leaky. Mm-hmm. So normally those capillaries keep the blood in. When we get a cut, they start to leak, and they leak the fluid that surrounds the blood, called the plasma. Plasma is then what makes the crust, which forms a scab. Okay. In the plasma are platelets. But the biggest thing about it leaking is that it triggers the repair crews to come out and start doing something different than what they normally do. So we're going to repair the tissue. That's what we're going to try to do. We would call that inflammation. So inflammation is normal. Inflammation is a good thing when it is repairing tissue. Mm-hmm. If we wind up in a situation where the tissue gets inflamed and basically it is not damaged, we now wind up with this inflammation that is a bad thing. It's trying to do something where there's nothing that needs to be done. And so all of this then boils down to chemistry, which is kind of the answer for your question.
Mm-hmm.
So when we have balance in chemistry, our equations come out where there are no spare electrons or protons or neutrons. Okay, everything balances, and the electrons are the big deal there. So if we're making table salt, which is sodium chloride, we have sodium, which is a positive charge. We have chloride, which is a negative charge. We add them together, we get salt, which is neutrally charged. Okay. When it is neutrally charged, nothing happens from a chemistry standpoint. We're done. The equation is balanced. So a little bit like balancing your bank account. If we wind up with a particle on the other side of the equation that is charged, we now have something that the body needs to deal with. We could equate that to inflammation. And so what we hear is the word antioxidants,
Mm-hmm.
anti-inflammatories. What these things do from a chemistry standpoint is help to rebalance the equation if it can be done. And so things that are antioxidants or anti-inflammatories typically wind up putting in electrons. So they're going to take a positively charged particle and they're going to balance it. Okay. They're antioxidants, that is antioxidizers. And so again, in chemistry, we go back to positive and negatively charged. Positively charged particles are cations or oxidizers. Then negatively charged particles are antioxidizers. Okay, they're also called reducing agents. And so what we have is we shorten it down to reduction oxidation. So it's a redox equation. Okay, that's from a chemistry standpoint. So again, all we're dealing with is positive and negative charges. So things like vitamin C, potent antioxidizer.
Mm-hmm.
It helps to balance the electrons in an equation. Ozone, for example, is an oxidizer. It does the opposite thing. It adds positive charges to an equation. Vitamin C adds negative charges to an equation. And so what we need is we need balance. So how do you address inflammation? That was the actual question. I've now laid the foundation.
Right.
What we need to do is we need to balance the chemical equation.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So if you know what the chemical equation is, and you know you either have too many positive charges or too many negative charges, you can balance it really simply. I mean, literally, you sit down, you crunch the numbers, you figure out how much you need of something, and you take it into your body, and it's balanced.
Mm-hmm.
I don't have the smarts to do that, right? I mean, sort of somebody out there does. And so
Sure.
then what we're going to do is we're going to guess. That's the reality. For most of us as human beings, there is not a lab test that I know of that's going to give us the numbers of electrons or protons that we need to balance our chemical equation.
Mm-hmm.
And keep in mind that it is constantly changing.
Mm-hmm.
So here are the things that we can do. If we need to add negative charges,
Mm-hmm.
we can ground, right? The earth is the ground. We call it the ground, but electrically, it is also a ground. It can absorb charges. It can give you electrons.
Mm-hmm.
Okay? So earthing is a way to help balance our chemical equation.
Mm-hmm.
Earthing, if you're in the middle of the Amazon rainforest, works really, really well because there's no electricity around to send stray signals into the ground. If you are in an urban area where there's transformers or power lines close, and I won't go into the details about that, but earthing can be potentially problematic. So you need to understand more about what you're doing before you do it if you live in an urban area. But earthing is certainly an option.
Mm-hmm.
Next option is we increase our antioxidants. Blueberries, raspberries, astaxanthin, resveratrol, right? We drink a little bit of red wine. All those give us those electrons that help to balance us from the electron side of the equation. from the positive side of the equation, ozone, which is a pro-inflammatory, but because it helps to balance the equation, if you're out on the positive side or on the negative side, then it also brings us back into balance. Okay, so that is the long-winded answer to the question. Anything that falls under the antioxidant category, and Dr. Google has a long list, are things that you can do to balance you from that side if you're too positive. Ozone or things that are oxidizers can balance you from the side if you're too negative. The way you can figure it out is with litmus paper.
And litmus paper on your saliva?
Any of your bodily fluids.
Any of your bodily fluids.
Yep.
However, from my understanding, is that in different parts of the chain, so to speak.
Yes, exactly.
Body, it's going to have a different
pH.
pH.
Correct. Absolutely. And a different range where balance is supposed to occur.
Okay.
Okay. So what we learn in medical school, now keep in mind that when we're dealing with the pH scale, it's logarithmic. And 7.0 is the center of the seesaw, if you will. Okay. When we're at 7, we're equally balanced between acid and base.
Okay.
Okay. The blood, for example, its range is 7.35 to 7.45.
Okay.
Literally 1/10 of a pH unit is the range in which you are balanced in the blood, and the body will work very hard to keep you balanced in the blood. Okay. If I want to, for example, you have a urinary tract infection, and I want to use pH alone to knock down the bacteria that are giving you the problem, I need to take your urine on the acid side of 5. So if I'm at 5, I'm killing some bacteria. If I'm at 4.9, 4.8, I'm killing more because the environment is not conducive to growing the bacteria.
Okay. Thank you.
Yeah.
And ultimately, even if we did do the pH paper and tested urine or blood or saliva, it's still guessing to some degree because we still gotta.
Absolutely.
If you have a handful of blueberries, it's going to change the whole system.
Correct.
And if you have a handful of chocolate covered blueberries, it's going to change the system in a
better way, especially if they're dark chocolate, because those are healthy.
Got it. So is there, being that it's a guessing game for this whole inflammation equation, are there any guidelines to go by as far as how it feels in the body? I have some guesses of my own.
Yes.
In terms of inflammation, there's a certain feeling I get when the inflammation in my body is reduced, and other experiences in my body when I feel inflamed. So are there any guidelines that you would suggest to go by?
Become your great-great-grandparents. If we think that through, let's say people that were in their childhood in the, 1870s, 1880s, right? How did they live their life? So frozen food wasn't invented yet. Fast food wasn't invented yet. Basically, if you wanted it, you had to go to the butcher and get it, or you grew it in the garden, right? So good rules to live by. Most of the time when we are creating a food that is shelf stable so that we can sell it in a grocery store, we're adding chemicals that aren't necessarily the best for your body. Okay. If we also go back to the 1870s, 1880s, electricity was just being invented, and most people didn't have it. There were no cell phones. There were no computers. It was pencil and paper. That's how you learned, and that's how you corresponded, and better for the body. There's a gentleman by the name of Samuel Milham. He is or was, I'm not sure if he's still working, but an epidemiologist in Washington State. And so basically he starts looking at the data of disease and how it's progressed across Washington State since the records started being kept. And so what he finds is, before the advent of electricity, people were relatively healthy. Electricity starts to come into the cities, and the incidence of disease goes up. And as the electricity spreads to the rural areas, the incidence of disease goes up in the rural areas. It's a direct correlation. Like, he's just looking at historical data. He's not inferring anything except what the data tells him. So inherently for us, electricity is not something that, yep, that's the one. It is not something that our bodies are used to. And it causes in us inflammation, which then leads to, over time, disease process. It's interesting. So do your best to step back to your great-great-grandparents. Whenever you can, get away from electricity. Theoretically, when you sleep, electricity should not be in your bedroom. You don't need it. You're sleeping. Then if we're going along those same lines, avoid processed foods as much as possible. If we're going along those same lines, eat the way your great-great-grandparents did. There was not a non-organic way of eating. It hadn't been developed yet, right? So they just ate what came out of the garden. And it was organic because there was no other option. We hadn't started genetically modifying seeds, right? Everything was raised on family farms, not factory farms. So that process of going back to that place of, oh, hey, how do I buy from my local producer of anything that I need, is a good thing to look at. If you're shopping at the grocery store, what I tell my folks is, the next time you go to the grocery store, plan on spending 3 hours. 3 hours for the grocery store, because everything you buy, you're going to pick up, you're going to read the label. If you cannot pronounce what's on the label, you cannot buy it. Put it back on the shelf. So for example, if you're looking for tomato sauce, you're going to find a label that says tomatoes, water, salt, spices, carrots, whatever they put in there, onions. And there's going to be nothing that is not whole. That's the kind of label you're looking for. Then you can buy that particular item. And so going to the grocery store now for me is easy because I've read the labels. I've memorized what they look like. And so the grocery store now is a 5 or 10 minute visit. You go in, this is what I know I can have. It's got good ingredients in it. And then that way you're minimizing what comes in as something that's going to cause an inflammatory response.
Kathy wrote that found the cold pressed juice on an empty stomach helps with inflammation. I use mostly vegetables and include ginger root.
Correct. So when we're pressing juice, what we want to avoid is heat. There are different juicers out there. I think the one that we have is a Champion juicer. It's just, when I did my research for the money that I was willing to spend, it was the best juicer for that money. And so that's what we got.
Got it.
What you're looking for is a juicer that's going to break the cell walls of plants. That's what allows the juice to come out. But to do that in a way that doesn't generate enough RPMs of a spinning blade to cause heat. There are single stage juicers, double stage juicers. What we found is what comes out of the juicer is fabulous for vegetable soup stock. It's also great chicken food.
Got it. I've done that with my daughter. We've used the from carrot juice.
Yep.
We've mixed it with eggs and some cinnamon and nutmeg and made pancakes with it.
Oh, cool.
Yeah. Yeah.
Cool.
So
That'd be a
have
recipe I'd love to have.
it's a gimme. You just I just juice carrots.
Yep.
So I drink the juice, but I'll take the pulp from the
Yep.
carrots.
Yep.
It's in just one bowl, so I'm not mixing anything else with it that would make it bitter or.
Sure.
And then just take a portion of that, put it in a bowl, and mix in enough eggs and cinnamon, nutmeg. Just sprinkle it in to create a consistency that would fry in a pan.
Wow. Okay, cool.
And then you put maple syrup or butter on it. And I use the pulp for it. But yeah, the chickens like it too.
Awesome.
So that was that. And there's the masticating juicers.
Yes.
Which is a completely different animal from my understanding.
Yep. They basically are going to run the juice through gears that chew it up, break the cell wall, the juice comes out. And again, it just has to be slow enough where it doesn't generate a ton of heat.
Right. Yeah, the heat breaks down the nutritional value and creates
it stops the enzymes from working.
Oh, got it. Okay. Yeah, that makes total sense. If anybody has any questions, you're watching live now or you're watching the replay, please type those in the comment section or the live chat. Questions for Dr. Beck. Questions, comments, nasty remarks, whatever you'd like to contribute, and we'll address those. Let's see. Let's take a moment and we'll go over to the commercial. Do that real quick, just for a minute.
Our mission at the Comella Foundation is to relieve pain naturally using osteopathic healing principles. The Comella Foundation is recognized as a nonprofit 501c3 under the Internal Revenue Code. Your contributions are greatly appreciated. Please consider taking a moment and donating to the Comella Foundation to help us continue our important pain-relieving work. Every little bit helps.
And we're back.
Awesome.
Yeah. So, inflammation is a huge topic.
Yes.
Talk about that for days, I'm sure. Were anything around thoughts on intermittent fasting to help with inflammation?
It's a longer answer than that. Yes, thoughts about it. What I'm doing is so first of all, if intermittent fasting works for you, if your body can actually handle it, it's a great thing. If you try it and your body revolts, then your body's just not wired to be able to do it in that time period or for that duration. So you need to modify it to work for you. I am getting ready to do a deep dive into physics and math, which, oh my God, I graduated from that when I left college. But what I'm going to try to do is figure out how inflammation works from a voltage standpoint in the nervous system. Ooh. So it is either going to turn the voltage up or down. It's going to alter it some way. And then we should be able to use things like permanent magnets to influence the voltage in the body. And that's what I'm going to do the math about, is to try to figure out what kind of magnets, what power you would use, where you would put them, all that kind of stuff. So it may take me a little while because I'm just started the process of relearning all the equations and how to crunch the numbers. But anyway, I'll have that at some point and we'll talk about it on an episode.
Excellent. Kathy contributed. Let's see. We got a question here. My sister has slow stomach digestion. Would osteopathic manipulations help with that?
Yes.
Okay.
Now that makes that easy.
Yeah. Is there any particular balancing the pelvis?
So this would be something that probably would fall under visceral manipulation.
Okay.
Understanding how the organs move and basically dance together, and making sure that everybody is doing their part.
Got it. Okay, great. Well, thank you, Kathy. Thank you for sharing that. Okay. Anything else? Anything else you want to cover today?
Sounds good, brother. I think we're done.
Gonna go juice some carrots and make breakfast.
Yes, indeed.
Cool. Okay. Well, we will wrap up today's episode for now. I want to thank everyone for being here. Thank you, Dr. Beck, for taking your time to share your valuable information or knowledge and
My pleasure.
experience. Kathy, thanks you as well. Excellent. Okay. Bill Paravano, the Knee Pain Guru, signing off for today. Have a wonderful day, and we will see you next Friday.
Yep. Have a great week, everyone.